You know, in the world of global diplomacy, things usually move at a snail's pace, right? It's all about process, bureaucracy. It's slow. But what if a brand new global power could just appear in a matter of months with, get this, $1 billion price tag just for a seat at the table? Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today, the rise of the Board of Peace. And look, this isn't just another international committee with a fancy name. We're talking about something that raises a really fundamental question. Is this Board of Peace a clever, pragmatic new way to get things done, a shortcut to stability, or is it something else entirely, a direct challenge designed to tear down the global order we've known for the last, 75 plus years? All right, so first up, let's talk about the vision. We're going to look at just how fast this whole thing came together and the grand, almost utopian idea it was built on.
I mean, the speed here was just staggering. Seriously. The idea gets floated by Donald Trump in September 2025. Just 2 months later, it gets a thumbs up from the UN Security Council, specifically for Gaza. Then bam, by January, it's formally announced. And a week after that, it's a done deal, signed into existence at the World Economic Forum in Davos. For global diplomacy, that's moving at light speed. And right here, this is where we see the first huge pivot. The UN Security Council, they thought they were greenlighting a reconstruction plan for Gaza. Simple enough, right? But the document that actually got signed, well, it created a permanent global institution. And that original mission for Gaza, it was practically a footnote by then. A huge shift in scope.
Now, the initial sales pitch for this, which was led by Jared Kushner, was massive. The plan wasn't just to rebuild Gaza. Oh no, it was to totally transform it into a Riviera of the Middle East. I mean, just picture it. Gleaming high-rise towers, luxury seaside resorts, a complete reimagining of the entire coastline. Super ambitious. Okay, but to pull off a vision that huge, you need power, a lot of power. And this is where we get to probably the most controversial part of the board's entire design, its power structure. It's unlike anything we've really seen before, because it's all centered on just one person. And it's written right there in black and white in the charter. It doesn't create an office like president or secretary general. Nope. It names a specific person, Donald J. Trump. And the term for this position, it's for life. That's pretty extraordinary in an international charter. So let's talk about the scope of this power, because it is absolutely immense. The chairman can veto anything. He can appoint and, get this, dismiss entire member states. He can issue resolutions all by himself, set the agenda, call meetings whenever he wants. Heck, he can even designate his own successor. In the world of international bodies, that level of personal, unchecked authority is, it's basically unheard of. So you can imagine this kind of structure made a lot of people nervous. Critics started voicing some pretty serious concerns. The Guardian, for instance, put it really bluntly. They called it, and I'm quoting here, a Trump-dominated pay-to-play club aimed at supplanting the UN itself. And that quote, it really cuts to the heart of what the opposition was afraid of. So, naturally, a radical new model like this immediately split the world right down the middle. It created this huge global divide. So, let's take a look at who's in and who's out. Yeah, the reaction around the globe was instant, and it was deeply divisive. You had one camp, the signatories, countries like Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Hungary, the UAE, and Israel. They saw this as a smart, pragmatic new tool, a way to cut through all the usual diplomatic gridlock. But then you had the other side, traditional powers like France, the UK, Norway, and Sweden. And they saw it as a full-on assault on the United Nations and the very concept of international law. And France's foreign minister at the time, Jean-Noël Barrot, he really summed up the position of a lot of these European countries perfectly. He basically said, look, yes to implementing the peace plan, but no to creating an organization which would replace the United Nations. So they were for the goal, but totally against the new structure. And the response to this kind of pushback? It was swift and it was very, very transactional. When France was on the fence, the answer wasn't some polite diplomatic note. No, it was a threat of retaliatory tariffs on French wine and champagne. It was a crystal clear signal. Get on board or there could be economic consequences. And that transactional approach, it leads us right into the financial side of all this, the actual mechanics of the board, and a concept that critics quickly labeled pay-to-play diplomacy. So how exactly does this new kind of diplomacy work? Well, it starts with a price tag, a big one. If a country wants a permanent seat on the Board of Peace, the entry fee, and this is written right into the charter, is $1 billion.
The charter basically lays out this two-tier system. You pony up $1 billion, you get a permanent seat. Simple. But if you don't pay up, well, you get a temporary 3-year term, and your renewal is completely up to the chairman. So it explicitly ties a nation's power and influence directly to its wallet.
So let's just define that term. Pay-to-play diplomacy. What is it? It's basically an approach where your influence, your privileges, your say in an international group is tied directly to how much money you put in. And this idea, it flies right in the face of a core principle of the UN system, which is sovereign equality. The idea that every state, whether it's big or small, rich or poor, gets an equal voice.
So all of this really forces us to step back and ask some pretty big questions. Is this some kind of new world order in the making? Let's break down the core dilemmas here. When you boil it all down, what you're really looking at is a clash between two totally different philosophies of how the world should be run. On one hand, you've got the Board of Peace model. It values efficiency above sovereignty. It's built to be fast, centralized, and selective. You pay to play. Then you have the United Nations model. It's the exact opposite. It values sovereignty above efficiency. It's slow or short, but it's built on multilateralism, universal representation, and decades of established international law. So you have to ask, why even build this alternative system? Well, when asked about it directly, President Trump's reason was incredibly blunt and personal. He just said, "The United Nations never helped me." And that one sentence, it really reveals this deep frustration with the old way of doing things. And it was clearly the driving force behind creating something brand new. And that brings us right back to where we started. Is the Board of Peace the beginning of the end for the rules-based order that's pretty much defined the last century? Or is it the start of a new, more effective, more transactional era of global peace? Right now, the whole world is watching. And that's a question whose answer is still being written.